Crude oil as a natural resource is not equally distributed around the world. Some countries have more abundance of the crude oil deposits than others. The countries or companies that produce a significant percentage of the global crude oil demand are called the major producers, while the countries that purchase a significant percentage of the global crude oil demand are called the major oil consumers. The global demand for crude oil as of 2019 was about 100 million barrels per annum. There is a massive trade flow annually between the major crude oil producers and the major consumers. In this presentation, we will highlight the structure of the modern oil industry, the key players, while a few large players control the core of the oil industry, and finally, the trade flow direction between major oil producers and major oil consumers. The modern oil industry is principally controlled by a few large players, which include the national oil companies, NOCs, the international oil companies, IOCs, the wildcatters, and oil service companies. The NOCs own the crude oil resources and represent the interests of the host countries. For example, Saudi Aramco is the NOC that represents the interests of the Saudi nation in the development of its oil fields. The IOCs, which are the international oil companies, are the companies that take the financial risk to develop these resources on behalf of the host countries. These are majorly the super majors such as Chevron, Shell, ExxonMobil, and so on. The wildcatters are independent operators who have less financial backbone than the oil super majors, but however, they are risk seeking and very innovative and are always agile to pursue oil exploration and production opportunities that the super majors may not be well structured enough to exploit. In fact, the original development of shale oil and gas production in the United States through hydraulic fracturing and horizontal well drilling was widely credited to the efforts made by the wildcatters. The oil service companies invest in research and development to continuously offer improved technologies, operational and project excellence required to deliver oil services support to the IOCs, the NOCs, and the wildcatters. The graphics on the slide show that a few countries and a few major oil companies constitute the major oil producers of the world, and these are the companies that principally sell crude oil to the major consumers of the world. The core of the modern oil industry is controlled by a few large NOCs, IOCs, and the oil field service companies. The reason for the control by a few large entities are related to concentration of resources and influence of these large players. These concentrated resources and influence may have been derived from financial capital of, for example, the super majors, the political influence of host governments, the abundance of the crude oil resources in few host nations compared to the rest of the world, the physical and intellectual capital generated by the oil field service companies through research and development, project execution in regions around the world. They actually serve as barriers to entry for smaller players who have relatively fewer years of experience executing projects or less investment in research and development and less intellectual capital. Annually, there is massive crude oil trade flow between major oil producers and major oil consumers. This is indicated by the arrow showing that the crude oil producers deliver oil to the major crude oil consumers. In 2019, about 100 million barrels of crude oil were traded around the world. It is interesting to find the US is listed as both a major oil producer and a major oil consumer. The shale revolution in the US triggered a resurgence in the US oil production and restored US position as a major oil producer, even as US continues to be among the two largest consumers of oil in the world. The top five consumer nations or regions of the world are the US, the European Union, China, Japan, and India.